So previously, guys, we've been doing the naming of organic compounds. We have done a naming of different types of organic compounds and different homologous series, all the way from alkanes, alkynes, ketones, aldehydes, and all of that. So we have done a couple of different ways of naming organic compounds. Okay, so now we are going to the physical properties that are associated with organic compound. So we are first going to introduce organic compounds as well as their intermolecular forces. So since you guys are coming from your grade 11, you guys probably know what intermolecular forces, right? What are intermolecular forces? Do you guys know anything about intermolecular forces or any example of intermolecular forces from your previous grades?
It's the bond between atoms, sir.
Come again, Nogo.
I said it's bonds between atoms, sir.
Okay, so yeah, so it's actually an interaction between molecules. When we're talking about intermolecular forces, there is some interaction between molecules. For example, when we're talking about the molecules of water, when we take molecules of water, for example, these are water molecules. If we take two molecules of water, they are going to interact with one another. This hydrogen will interact with the oxygen, and then the oxygen will interact with the hydrogen. These are intermolecular forces. So basically, when I'm talking about intermolecular forces, those are just weak interactions that happen or that occur between two different molecules. So we are going to look at intermolecular forces that affect organic compounds, those compounds that contain carbon, the ones that we've been doing all along. Okay, so we are going to say that basically the intermolecular forces, I'm going to just abbreviate them as IMF. We are going to divide them into three main groups. Okay, so we are going to divide them into the Van der Waals forces. So we are going to say that we're going to divide them into the Van der Waals forces, as well as the hydrogen bonding. Okay, so these are the main divisions that I'm going to use. So we're going to just say that we have got two main classifications of intermolecular forces. So we've got the Van der Waals forces as well as the hydrogen bonding. So what two examples of Van der Waals forces do you guys know of? What are any two examples of Van der Waals forces that you guys know of? Any example, guys? Any example of Van der Waals forces that you guys know or you've learned previously? No one, guys, still remembers Van der Waals forces, really? Is it? Guys, anyone who remember any type of Van der Waals forces? Okay, it's fine then. So I will just tell you because you guys don't want to say anything. So Van der Waals forces, we have got two different forces that fall under the Van der Waals forces. We have got the London dispersion forces. So these are the London dispersion forces. These are known as the London dispersion forces. And then the other type of Van der Waals force, it is the dipole forces. The other one, it is a dipole interactions, or it's a dipole forces between two molecules. And then when it comes to hydrogen bonding, remember, for us to have hydrogen bonding, we must have oxygen, or we must have nitrogen, or we must have any of that. So basically, what's most important is for you guys to know that when it comes to the strength of these intermolecular forces, or the strength of these interactions between molecules, the London dispersion forces, they are the weakest. So these ones are the weakest. So the weakest intermolecular forces that we're going to talk about are the London dispersion forces. They are otherwise known as the induced dipoles in grade 11, but now we're just going to call them the London dispersion forces. So the London dispersion forces, when you've got two organic compounds and they've got London dispersion forces between them, it means that they've got weaker forces between them, weaker intermolecular forces between them. So if we have got a compound A and then you have got another compound B, and like two molecules, molecule A and molecule B, and you find out that their interaction or the intermolecular force between them is a London dispersion force, it means that it's a weak force. It's a weak force. They are not really too much interacting with one another, or they are not really too much attracted to one another. Because remember, guys, that these intermolecular forces, they can be attractive or they can be repulsive. So if it means that we've got weaker intermolecular forces between two molecules or two organic molecules, it simply means that they are not too much attracted to one another, or they are not too much repelled to one another. So whenever we've got London dispersion forces, we have got weaker forces between the organic molecules. Then now the dipole forces, they are slightly stronger than the London forces. So we're going to say that the dipole forces, these are still Van der Waals forces, but the dipole, it is stronger. So the dipole forces are stronger than the London. Okay, so the dipole forces are quite stronger than the London dispersion forces. So it means that if I tell you that two organic compounds or two organic molecules, they have got a dipole forces between their molecules, then it means that those are stronger than the London forces. But now the strongest of all, it is the hydrogen bonding. So basically the hydrogen bonding, usually when we call the hydrogen bond, we say it's a strong hydrogen bond. We say it is a strong hydrogen bond, because when you have got two organic molecules and you find out that they have got hydrogen bonding, it means that they've got strong intermolecular forces. They are the strongest of all intermolecular forces that we look at. That is what? That is hydrogen bonding. It is strong hydrogen bonding. So this strong hydrogen bonding will definitely be a greater or a stronger intermolecular force compared to what? Compared to the dipole forces. So the strong hydrogen bond, the strong hydrogen bonding or the strong hydrogen bond is way stronger. Like the strength of these forces between two compounds, it is way stronger than what? Than the dipole forces. So these are the three intermolecular forces that we're going to be focusing on in the context of organic molecules. So we have got London dispersion forces, which are weak Van der Waals forces. They are the weakest. So when we have got molecules that have got a London dispersion forces between them, it means that they are not really interacting that much. They are not really attached to one another. Okay? But now when we've got dipole forces, now the forces are getting stronger. The intermolecular forces are getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Okay, better than the London dispersion forces. But now when you've got the hydrogen bonding, the hydrogen bond, it is the strongest intermolecular force that we have. So if I tell you that two organic molecules have got strong hydrogen bonds between them, or they form strong hydrogen bonds between them, it means that they are going to have the strongest intermolecular forces than the other ones, which contain dipole or London dispersion forces. So do you guys understand which intermolecular forces are stronger? Are you guys getting me or what?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so basically London dispersion forces are the weakest. Dipole, they are slightly stronger than the London dispersion forces, and then the strong hydrogen bond, it is the strongest. It is the strongest of all. So now we know which ones are the weakest, which ones are slightly stronger, and which ones are the strongest. All right. So when it comes to classifying organic compounds or organic molecules now, organic molecules, we first start with the hydrocarbons. Do you still guys remember the hydrocarbons? Which organic compounds are hydrocarbons in the homologous series? Which organic compounds are hydrocarbons?
So, carboxylic acid.
Carboxylic acid is a hydrocarbon, really, guys. Hydrocarbon, something that has got only carbon and hydrogen atoms in it.
So,
which are the hydrocarbons, guys? Alkanes, guys. I always repeat this. The hydrocarbons only have got carbon and hydrogen in their molecule. So the hydrocarbons, the alkanes, and the alkynes, all of them, they fall under the London dispersion forces. So alkenes, as well as alkynes, these three. So alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes, these three are hydrocarbons. All of them, they have London forces. They've got weak London forces between their molecules. So if I take an alkane, for example, if I say butane, if I say, for example, the molecule butane, this is a hydrocarbon, this is an alkane. Okay, so this butane, basically the intermolecular forces, or the forces that we are going to have between butane molecules, all of them, they are going to be London dispersion forces. So if I've got one butane molecule and I've got another butane molecule, when they come closer, or when they come closer to one another, what actually happens, the forces between them, or the intermolecular forces between them, they are what? They are London forces. They are London forces, because butane is an example of a what? Of an alkane. So basically, guys, we're not talking about the alkanes, the alkenes, or the alkynes, any of those hydrocarbons, any of those organic compounds, alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes, all of them, they do what? They have got London dispersion forces between their molecules. So if I take an alkene, for example, I give you the alkene, I say this is 1-butene. This is an alkene, right? If I've got 1-butene on one side and I've got another 1-butene, so these are the molecules of 1-butene. These rounds are representing the molecules of 1-butene. The forces between them, the intermolecular forces, or the forces between their molecules, because once you have got two molecules of the same kind and they are interacting with one another, they will have intermolecular forces. And the intermolecular forces between alkenes of the same kind, we say those are known as what? Those are known as the London forces as well, because alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes, all of them, they have got London forces between their molecules. They have got London forces between their molecules. So whenever you hear of London dispersion forces, just associate them with these three hydrocarbons: the alkanes, the alkenes, and the alkynes. Those three hydrocarbons, all of them, they have got what? They've got London dispersion forces between their molecules. Are we guys together?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so these are alkanes, alkenes, alkynes. So if we have an alkyne, it can still work the same way, guys. If I've got maybe an alkyne, maybe which is maybe let's just say this is ethine. This is ethine. This is a molecule of ethine, and I take another molecule of ethine. Remember, guys, that these are forces that exist between molecules of the same kind, as you learned in grade 11. So if I'm having these two, both of these are alkynes. So the molecular forces, the intermolecular forces between them, or the interaction between them, it is going to be London forces. And we know that the London forces are what? They are weak. So we can say that the alkanes, the alkenes, and the alkynes, those three, they all form weak London forces between their molecules. So the intermolecular forces between two alkanes of the same kind, for example, between butane and butane, is London forces. Between one butene and one butene is another London force. Between an alkyne and another alkyne of the same kind, we have London forces as the forces between them. Guys, think about this. It's like a magnet, okay? So basically we have got stronger magnets. You know, guys, that there are stronger magnets that are able to attract other materials quickly, and we've got weaker magnets. Just imagine it in that way, to say that between molecules we can have weak intermolecular forces, so they are like weakly attracted to one another. The molecules of alkanes and alkenes and alkynes, they are weakly attracted. There is weak attraction between them. Because when I'm talking about these London dispersion forces, we're just talking about the forces of attraction between the molecules of these compounds, or of these of these organic compounds. So basically, if I'm having an ethine and another ethine, basically the interaction between them is a weak interaction. They are weakly attracted to one another. Okay, it's like they don't have that much attraction with one another. So do you guys understand now when we say alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes, which all of them, they exhibit weak London forces? Do you guys now get what that sense is? What does it mean?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the forces between their molecules are weak, or we can say that they've got weak attractions between their molecules. All right, so now let's move to other compounds. So the other compounds, such as ketones, aldehydes, haloalkanes, as well as esters, all of those, the intermolecular forces that they have between their molecules, it is what? It is the dipole-dipole. So basically the ketones form dipole-dipole interactions. The aldehydes, they also form dipole-dipole interactions. So aldehydes also form dipole-dipole interactions. Haloalkanes, guys, remember those ones have got they've got a halogen there. So it's haloalkanes. So the haloalkanes as well, they also form dipole-dipole forces, as well as the esters. They also form dipole-dipole forces between their molecules. So it means that if I'm having two ketone molecules, the intermolecular forces between them are going to be dipole-dipole. And we already said that the dipole-dipole is much stronger than the London force. So if I'm going to take here and I say this is the first ketone, maybe call this 2-butanone. So this is 2-butanone. This is a ketone. And I take another 2-butanone. I'm sure we're having two molecules of the same kind here. We have got 2-butanone. These are two different molecules. These are two molecules of the same kind. Both of them are ketones, but because they are ketones, we know that the interaction or the attractive forces that they form between them, it is going to be what? It's going to be dipole-dipole attracting forces. Dipole-dipole. So you're gonna write that properly. It's dipole-dipole attraction. So if I was to compare, guys, if I take two alkanes, let me just say let's just say I'm comparing 2-butane, and then I compare it with 2-butanone. So 2-butane, and I compare it with just butanone. There's no need to put the 2, by the way. Okay, so I'm comparing 2-butane with 2-butanone. Now my question is, which of the following have got stronger intermolecular forces between 2-butane and butanone? Which has the strongest intermolecular forces?
Butanone, sir.
Yes, it is butanone. Yes, because we see that butanone is a ketone, okay, because the end of the name is an -one. So butanone is a ketone, whereas butane is an alkane. So butanone is a ketone, butane is an alkane. And we know that alkanes, they form weak London forces, whereas ketones like butanol like this, it forms strong. It's like the dipole is more stronger compared to the London dispersion forces. So that's how we just compare them. So you guys already know that alkanes and alkynes, they always have got weakest intermolecular forces between them. They've got weak London forces. Even haloalkanes, even esters, all of them, they've got dipole forces. Okay, so that's the second intermolecular force. And then the third intermolecular force that we have here, it is the strong hydrogen bond. Remember guys, the strong hydrogen bond, as the name suggests, it is strong. So the hydrogen bond, it is strong. It is the strongest intermolecular force that we can have. And which organic compounds can form a hydrogen bond, or which organic compound can attract each other using a hydrogen bond? It is the carboxylic acids. So we've got carboxylic acids as well as alcohols. So we've got carboxylic acids and alcohols. So when you're having carboxylic acid molecules, they form strong hydrogen bonding between one another. Even when you're having alcohol molecules, they form strong hydrogen bonding between one another. I won't need to draw diagrams anymore, but basically you guys should know that out of these 9 homologous series, or these 9 types of organic compounds that we've done so far, the organic molecules with the smallest, or with the weakest intermolecular forces are the hydrocarbons, which are the alkanes, the alkenes, and the alkynes. So the hydrocarbons, the alkanes, alkynes, they are what? They are they've got the weakest, or they form the weakest intermolecular forces. The dipole, the ketones, the aldehydes, the haloalkanes, and the esters, they form dipole intermolecular forces. And dipole forces are quite stronger than the London dispersion forces. Then now the carboxylic acids and alcohols, those ones are the bosses of the game. Those ones, they form strong hydrogen bonding. So if you take 2 carboxylic acids, if you take this carboxylic acid, maybe this is pentanoic acid. If you take 2 molecules of pentanoic acid, the intermolecular forces between them, if you take 2 molecules of pentanoic acid, the intermolecular force between them, it is going to be the strong hydrogen bond. So we expect to find the strong hydrogen bond. So do you guys get the strength of the intermolecular forces and how to classify them?
Yes.
Okay, so now when it comes to the strong hydrogen bond, since I said that you've got carboxyl, oh yes, Sam, what's your question?
So sir, since ester yenziwa i-carbon, so how come it can be weaker than those 2, sir?
An ester cannot form a hydrogen bond. An ester cannot form hydrogen bonding. Like the molecules of 2 esters can never form hydrogen bonding between their molecules, but the ones of carboxylic acids and the alcohols, they can form them. If we are just having a separate carboxylic acid and a separate alcohol, they are able to form those hydrogen bonds, but as for esters, they cannot form. So if you guys want to find out why, you need to revise your grade 11. How do you determine the intermolecular force in the first place? If you go and revise that, definitely you get the answer to say esters, they must have dipole forces. But as for the hydrogen bond, as for the carboxylic acids and alcohols, they've got strong hydrogen bonds. Yes, an ester is a combination of a carboxylic acid and an alcohol, but that doesn't necessarily mean that when we now have a complete ester, it will form a strong hydrogen bond like its carboxylic acid and its alcohol. Nope, doesn't mean that. So if you want to know more about that, you need to go back a bit to your grade 11 on how to determine the intermolecular forces in the first place. But now we're just stating them because you guys are in grade 12, you already did them in grade 11. Are you guys still together?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when it comes to the strong hydrogen bonding, since we've got carboxylic acids and alcohols, we can further compare these two and say that the hydrogen bonding in carboxylic acids is way more stronger than the one in alcohols. Okay, so basically yes, both of them, they've got strong hydrogen bonding indeed. They are very stronger compared to the rest of the other homologous series, but the one in carboxylic acid is stronger than the one in alcohols. We see that from their functional group. If you can see, the functional group for a carboxylic acid, remember guys, it is a carboxyl group. It looks like this. So this is the functional group of a carboxylic acid. Let me just write the O and the bond H. So this is the functional group of a carboxylic acid. And then if we take the functional group of an alcohol, the functional group of an alcohol is going to be COH. Okay, so these are the two functional groups of these two compounds. So the first one is a carboxyl group, the one for an alcohol, or for a carboxylic acid, I mean. Then the second one, it is the hydroxyl group. It is the one for an alcohol. So now we say that the hydrogen bonding here in carboxylic acid, it is stronger than the one in alcohols, because basically in carboxylic acids we have got two oxygen. So we've got two oxygen atoms. So each and every oxygen atom, it can do its own hydrogen bonding. So basically here the carboxylic acids, they will have more strong hydrogen bonds or more strong hydrogen bonding because we're having two sides. So we are having what? We're having two sides for hydrogen bonding. Because remember guys that a hydrogen bond, it happens on what? It happens on an oxygen. If you guys didn't know, you guys should probably revise your grade 11 work. A hydrogen bond is a bond between a hydrogen and an oxygen, or it's a bond between a hydrogen and a nitrogen, or it's a bond between a hydrogen and a fluorine. But because you guys are in grade 12, we're dealing with organic compounds, we are just going to say that a hydrogen bond is a bond between a hydrogen and an oxygen. So here in a carboxylic acid, the carboxyl group, it has got two oxygens. There is one, there is two. So it means that there are two sides for hydrogen bonding to occur. Because remember guys that the hydrogen bonding occurs on these oxygens. So basically, since we're having two oxygens, it means that there are two sides for hydrogen bonding. But in an alcohol, you guys notice that we only have got one oxygen. Because remember the hydroxyl group, guys, it only has got one oxygen. So in an alcohol, we only have one oxygen. So in other ways, we can say that for alcohols, the hydrogen bond is not as strong as the hydrogen bonding in carboxylic acid, because in alcohols we only have got one side for hydrogen bonding. Like remember guys that the oxygen is the one that does the hydrogen bonding. So here in carboxylic acid, since we're having two oxygens, they are able to all do the hydrogen bonding. They are all able to attract other carboxylic acids in the same way. But if we look at compound 2, which is an alcohol, they only have got one oxygen. So it means they've got only one side for hydrogen bonding. They've got only one side. The alcohols have got only one side for hydrogen bonding. They can never be able to, like when we're referring to their oxygens, basically, the second one has got only one side. We're considering the oxygens only for now. Are you guys kind of getting the sense why, even though the strong hydrogen bond apply to both carboxylic acids and alcohols, but the hydrogen bonding in carboxylic acids is way much stronger than the one in alcohols, because carboxylic acids have got two oxygens, so it means that they've got two places or two sides for hydrogen bonding to occur. They've got two oxygens, or you can say they've got two sides for hydrogen bonding to occur. But as for alcohols, they've got only one oxygen, or they've got only one site for hydrogen bonding to occur. So do you guys get the sense why the alcohols are not that much stronger as the carboxylic acid in terms of their intermolecular forces.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So yeah, so here's a mnemonic, guys, for you maybe to memorize them. I don't know if you guys do mnemonics. AAA, alkanes, alkenes, alkynes. These are the hydrocarbons. They've got weak London forces. Whenever you're talking about the London dispersion forces, always mention that they are weak. So they've got weak London forces. And then the ketones, the aldehydes, the haloalkanes, as well as the esters. That's why it's KAHE. Like KAHE. K is for ketones, A is for aldehydes, H is for haloalkanes, E is for esters. So these four, they've got dipole forces between them. Then for the hydrogen bonding, we've got carboxylic acids, the C, and then alcohols, the A. So now this is hydrogen bonding. This is strong hydrogen bonding. Add the strong there. Don't know when I was writing this, I forgot. But you must always emphasize that our hydrogen bond, it is a strong hydrogen bonding. And it occurs in carboxylic acids as well as alcohols. Are we guys getting the sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. Now, let's do a little exercise to just see if we can identify. Okay. In each of the following, provide the name of the intermolecular forces present. So let's start with the first table here, which I'll say is table A. So please give me the intermolecular forces of that are found in methanoic acid. So compound A here is methanoic acid. Give the intermolecular forces that are found.
Strong hydrogen bonds.
Why strong hydrogen bond?
Carboxylic.
What is the carboxylic acid?
Yes, so we have got strong hydrogen bonding here because it's a carboxylic acid. What about B? What about B? Ethanol.
Strong hydrogen bond.
It is still strong hydrogen bond, right? Because remember, guys, alcohols, ethanol is an alcohol, right? From the name ethanol, this is an alcohol. Okay, we still have strong hydrogen bonding. And then C.
C, we're still having a strong hydrogen bond.
Yes, it is still strong hydrogen bonding. Okay, what about D?
Strong hydrogen
Still
bond.
strong.
It is still strong hydrogen bond because we are just having alcohols and carboxylic acid here, guys. So please, it's very important. That's why we did a lot, we took a lot of time on naming so that you guys are able to recognize that this is an alcohol. Butanol is an alcohol, so it would have strong hydrogen bonding. Propanoic acid is a carboxylic acid. It would have strong hydrogen bonding. Ethanol is an alcohol. It would have strong hydrogen bonding as well. Okay, what about the table B? Let's look at the second table. We have got compound A, which is 2-methyl-butane. 2-methyl-butane. State.
It's weak.
Weak London force.
We have got weak London forces. Why did we pick weak London forces, guys?
Because it's an alkane.
Yes,
Because of an alkane, sir.
yes, 2-methyl-butane. You can hear by the way this name ends. This is butane, ane. So it's an alkane. Alkanes have got weak London forces between their molecules. So between the molecules of 2-methyl-butane, if we're having two molecules of 2-methyl-butane, the intermolecular force or the interaction between them is going to be weak London forces. What about B? Butanol. We've got butanol.
Strong hydrogen bond.
Strong hydrogen bond, right? Why did we pick strong hydrogen bond, guys?
Alcohol.
Because it's an alcohol.
Alcohol, yes. Yes, that all they tells us an alcohol, so we pick that. And then C?
C strong. There is
Still, it is still
strong.
strong hydrogen bond, yes. And then the last one, which is 2-fluorobutane. 2-fluorobutane.
The weak.
Dipole. It's a type
Is
of
weak.
dipole.
Okay, you can raise your hand now because I think what you guys are not in sync now. You can raise your hand using the raise the hand button. Yes, Shadrach.
Yes, sir, it's a dipole.
Yes, it's a dipole. Why didn't you say it's a weak London force, guys?
Because haloalkanes, they fall under dipole.
Yes, guys, this is 2-fluoro. So there is an F there, which is a halogen, 2-fluorobutane.
Hey Lapo, I know that you've been enjoying this wonderful video and most likely you've been enjoying watching this handsome face in front of you, but sorry ladies, I'm taken. I just here to tell you that Educate is on the road to 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. So please click the subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you get notifications whenever I post new videos. I want you guys to pass. Okay, so if you make my dream true, I reach 100k subscribers, I will make your dreams come true. I will even get you to varsity. I will get you with 7 distinctions. Yes.
Okay, guys, so now I'm sure that you guys are now used to identifying these different types of intermolecular forces. Now we need to now move to a bit of concepts of physical properties that are very important for you guys to know for organic chemistry. Right, so these definitions are usually 2 marks each and you guys need to define them the way stated here, guys. The first definition that you're going to look at, it is this physical property known as the boiling point of a liquid. So basically, guys, in realistic sense, in simple terms, when we say that we are talking about the boiling point, it's simply that temperature where you will see your liquid start boiling. But when it comes to defining it scientifically, you don't just say it is the temperature where the liquid starts boiling. Not really. But basically, I'm just telling you in my own simple terms to say that the temperature when a liquid starts to boil is known as the boiling point. Simply that. For example, if you take a pot of water, you fill in some water and then you turn on the stove, the temperature will continue rising and rising and rising, right? Because you are heating the water. And then at some point you're going to see the water starting to boil. So you just need to try and find out what is the temperature of the water at that point. That is the boiling point. But now when you define it scientifically, you say the boiling point, it is the what? It is the temperature at which the vapor pressure, this is vapor with a U, is a vapor pressure of a liquid is equal to its atmospheric pressure. So we usually give this a definition 2 marks. Yes, Lusanda?
Is your definition for the boiling point?
I didn't quite get you.
Can you please tell me your definition with your own simple thing?
Well, okay.
For boiling point.
Okay. In my own simple terms, please don't write the one that I'm saying in my own simple terms in the exam because you are not going to get the marks, okay? So basically, in simple terms, I was trying to explain that when you just want to know what boiling point is, it is just that temperature where a liquid starts boiling. For example, when you put a pot of water on top of a hot stove and then the water starts boiling, when you try and find out how hot is the water or what is the water's temperature, that is the boiling point when it starts boiling. But now when it comes to answering it, guys, when it comes to answering it in questions, if they say define the concept boiling point or define the term boiling point, you are going to say that it is the temperature at which the vapor pressure of a liquid is equal to its atmospheric pressure. So this one is more like a scientific definition, the one that is marked for 2 marks in the exam guideline. So basically, guys, when the question comes in the exam and says define boiling point, don't just define it in the simple terms and say it's the temperature at which water boils or maybe the temperature at which a liquid boils. That's going to be marked wrong, okay? Not that it is wrong, but when it comes to definitions, we need to try to define them in a scientific ways. We need to try to define them using other physical properties. So when you are told to define the boiling point, you say the boiling point is the temperature at which the vapor pressure of a liquid is equal to its atmospheric pressure. Is that understood, Lusanda?
Yes, sir. Yes, I do understand.
Yeah, okay, please try to define it in this way. So basically this is just an image just trying to explain what happens when there is boiling. So when the water starts forming bubbles or the water is starting to boil, basically the vapor pressure is just the pressure from the smoke. Because remember guys that, or from the steam, I mean, remember guys that when a liquid is being heated, like if I put a liquid on top of a stove, it will start making some steam. You guys know steam, right? You guys know what steam is. Yes. So if you take water, guys, and then you boil it, maybe you want to cook some pap, basically there's steam there. That steam, it is known as vapor. It is known as vapor. So that steam actually causes a pressure that is known as a vapor pressure. So the vapor pressure, we're still going to define it formally, but basically the vapor pressure, it is the pressure that is caused by the steam. That is the one represented by this upward arrow. Okay, there's not really a need for you to know these models, guys. This is just me trying to put you into picture to say that we've got something known as a vapor pressure, which is just basically the pressure that is exerted by this vapor. So this steam, it actually causes some pressure on the water. And also the outside environment, the air pressure or the atmospheric pressure, we call it the air pressure or the atmospheric pressure. It actually also causes a pressure on the water as well. So basically when these two pressures are equal to one another, your liquid will start to boil. So when the pressure that is caused by the vapor on the liquid, it is equal to the pressure that is caused by the air on the liquid. Because guys, remember atmospheric pressure, for those doing geography, you guys know that atmospheric pressure is the pressure of the air. So we have got vapor pressure coming out of the liquid, then we have got atmospheric pressure going into the liquid. When these two are equal to one another, your liquid will start to boil. That's why we define boiling point as the temperature at which vapor pressure of a liquid is equal to its atmospheric pressure. But if you guys are interested to do a chemistry at higher levels, we'll re-explain this one of the times and try and explain what is this vapor pressure thing in more broader terms. What is this atmospheric pressure? But you guys should just know, for the sake of the definition, just the temperature at which the vapor pressure of a liquid is equal to the atmospheric pressure. Are you guys getting the sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. And then we have got the melting point. The melting point, we define it as what? We define it as the temperature. It's still a temperature as well, guys, at which the liquid and the solid phases are at equilibrium. So this is the temperature at which the liquid and the solid phases are at equilibrium. Guys, these are the keywords that I'm highlighting here and that I'm underlining. They are very important for you guys to write in your definitions. Guys, write the definition exactly the way it is. Okay, don't define it in your own terms and say that the melting point is the temperature at which water starts to melt. No, guys. Yes, we know that when water starts to melt, that is the melting point. Yes, that's the melting point temperature. But guys, we're defining things in a scientific manner. That's why we say that it's the temperature at which the liquid and the solid phases are at equilibrium with one another. So for example, you guys can see in this beautiful image here, you are having some ice, and this ice is melting. Do you guys see that? The ice is melting. Do you guys see that? Yes. All right. Awesome. So let's build on this concept now. What do I want to build on this concept? At a molecular level, like if you take a microscope and you try to see the molecules of water, what is actually happening when water is boiling, or what's actually happening when water is melting. I'm sure water is H2O, guys. You guys know that water, like the molecules of water are H2O, right? Like it's got like 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. You guys know that, right? Yeah, so these are molecules of water. So basically, you have got water molecules. You've got many water molecules. You've got many water molecules here. For you to like have 1 liter of water, guys, there are many millions of water molecules, but they are so small that you cannot even see that you're having an oxygen and the hydrogen here. But basically, you have got many water molecules. You've got many water molecules in this water. Right now, thing is, between these water molecules, we have got what? We have got intermolecular forces. Because remember, guys, intermolecular forces are the forces between 2 molecules of the same kind. So between these different water molecules, we have got intermolecular forces. The oxygen and the oxygen, they can never attract. But basically, what happens? The hydrogen, it actually gets attracted to the oxygen, and then the oxygens are attracted to the hydrogens. Okay, oxygens repel one another. You guys already know that, right? Oxygens, they will repel one another because they are of the same kind, but the hydrogens, they will also repel one another, but the hydrogen and the oxygen, they attract one another. So these are the intermolecular forces that we are talking about. So when we are talking about boiling or melting, what does it simply mean? It simply means that these intermolecular forces are being broken. But we don't use the term broken. I'm still going to give you a better term or a better word to use. But basically, when we are talking about this whole thing of boiling something, when you say that water is boiling, or maybe when we say that ice is melting, it simply means that these forces that are connecting water molecules, they are doing what? They are breaking. These intermolecular forces that are attaching these together. Because guys, remember guys, we learned that in grade 10 that when we are having the molecules, when they are closer to one another, it's a solid. Do you guys know that? You guys learned that in grade 10, right? That when we are having molecules closer to one another, it is a solid. You guys still remember that, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, and then when these molecules are a bit separate, it now becomes a liquid. Let's just say now they are a bit separated. It now becomes a liquid. And then when they are too separate, when they are so far away from one another or so far apart from one another, it becomes a gas. You guys still remember that, right? Basic properties of matter to say that a solid, the molecules are closer to one another. A liquid, the molecules, they are relatively closer. They are not that closer to one another. But if it's a gas, the molecules are far away from one another. So do you guys still remember such a model when you're doing grade 10? Or do you guys have an idea what am I doing here with these balls?
Yes, sir.
Okay, something like that. So similarly here, guys, when we are having an ice, it simply means that we're having water molecules and they are having intermolecular forces between them. So it's water molecules and they are having intermolecular forces between them. And then when you are boiling the water, it simply means that you are breaking those intermolecular forces in such a way that they will separate. In such a way that these molecules will do what? Will separate. They will separate because we have broken the intermolecular forces, so they are now far away from one another. And when they're now far away from one another, it can end up becoming a gas. So you guys should just know that in simple terms, when we are boiling something or we are melting something, it simply means that we are breaking down the intermolecular forces between them. Between the molecules of that thing. So when we are melting water, it simply means that we are breaking the intermolecular forces between water. When we are boiling water, it's the same thing. You are breaking the intermolecular forces between water. But we don't use the term break, guys. I was just using the term break so that you understand. But we use the term overcome. So we say that it's overcoming. So basically it means we are overcoming the intermolecular forces. So do you guys kind of get the sense of what does it mean to boil or to melt at a microscopic level? Like if you zoom in and zoom in and zoom in using a microscope, do you now have an idea what happens when a liquid is boiling to be a gas or to be steam, or when an ice is melting to become a liquid water? Do you guys now have a bit of a sense of what's happening?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let's define vapor pressure. We've already explained what vapor pressure is in simple terms. It's just the pressure. It is the pressure that is exerted by a vapor on the surface of its liquid when they are at equilibrium. So basically, it is that pressure that I've indicated using an upward arrow that shows that the steam, guys, a vapor is just the steam that is produced when remember guys, the liquid will turn into steam, right? So that steam will cause some pressure and it's known as vapor pressure. Yes, Sam?
So I want to confirm something. If you call me into equilibrium, call me into constant normal.
Equilibrium doesn't really mean okay, there's something constant, and there's something equal as well, but you guys are still going to understand equilibrium later on, physical equilibrium and chemical equilibrium and whatnot. But basically, when the vapor and the liquid are at equilibrium, that pressure exerted by a vapor, so basically the vapor is the steam. It actually causes some pressure on the liquid, and that is known as vapor pressure. Are you guys understanding me?
Yes, sir.
So one thing that you need to know, guys, vapor pressure is inversely proportional to boiling point temperature. And also vapor pressure is inversely proportional to melting point temperature. So this means that boiling point and melting point, they are directly proportional. So if it means that my boiling point is increasing, then my vapor pressure, it will decrease. So if I'm having a higher boiling point, or if I'm having a higher boiling temperature, then it means that my vapor pressure will be lower. But if I'm having a higher melting point, or if it takes a higher temperature to melt something, then the vapor pressure, it means that it does what? It also decreases. Okay, so it's inversely proportional. When you increase the boiling point, you decrease the vapor pressure. When you increase the melting point, you also decrease the vapor pressure. But when you look at boiling point and melting point, these two, they are directly proportional to one another. Okay, so when there is a higher boiling point, it means that we are also going to have a higher melting point, because I've already explained to you guys that boiling and melting is the same thing. It simply means that you are overcoming intermolecular forces. Simply means that you are breaking those intermolecular forces, but you use the term overcome intermolecular forces. So boiling and melting, they kind of act the same way. Are you guys understanding me?
Yes.
Okay, so now let's look at the relationship between the intermolecular forces strength as well as the physical properties that we've discussed. So please listen to this one very carefully. When we are having stronger intermolecular forces, this implies that there is more energy or more heat required to overcome intermolecular forces. Hence, there will be a higher boiling and melting points, but there will be a lower vapor pressure. We've already talked about the different strength of intermolecular forces. So when we're having the stronger ones, it means that they are harder to overcome. I mean, guys, if you try to break a stronger bond and a weaker bond, which one will be easier to overcome? A stronger bond and a weaker bond?
A weaker bond.
a weaker bond. That's pretty obvious. So basically, let's say you are having a carboxylic acid. Let's just say you are given pentanoic acid. This is a carboxylic acid. So you already know that the molecules of pentanoic acid, they have got a strong hydrogen bond between them. They form strong hydrogen bonding between them. So they form strong hydrogen bonding between their molecules. So the molecules of pentanoic acid, they're gonna form strong hydrogen bonding. Means that they will attract each other so strongly, because a hydrogen bond is the strongest intermolecular force. So if they are attracting each other so strongly, it means that it will be hard to separate them, guys, because I just said something, a stronger bond is hard to separate than a weaker bond. So basically, if the forces between the molecules of pentanoic acid are forming strong hydrogen bonding, it basically means that we will require more energy or will require more heat to overcome them. Because guys, remember guys, I told you boiling or melting simply means that we are overcoming intermolecular forces. Boiling or melting simply means that we are breaking those intermolecular forces between the molecules. So basically, if those intermolecular forces that we are supposed to overcome, if they are so strong, it means that we'll need to use more heat. I mean, guys, you cannot. Okay, do you guys know Osu? Do you guys know Osu? Do you know tribe?
Yes.
I've said it in multiple languages. Also, Mkhodu, tribe. So, guys, is it easy to boil tribe?
No.
Nah. If you guys have ever cooked tribe, it is very hard. Or beans, for example. If you like take beans, like beans, not the baked beans, like the beans from the fields, I mean those beans, and then you try and boil them, it's going to take millions and millions of years. You are going to keep on increasing the water for them to be soft. But if I take something smaller and I boil it, maybe I'm boiling noodles. I don't even need to boil them that much. They will be soft quickly. It's because the beans are more stronger. So we need more heat. We need more energy so that we can soften them up. So similarly here, guys, if we're having organic compounds that have strong intermolecular forces between them, it means that we will require more energy to be able to overcome the intermolecular forces. You don't use the term break, guys. You are overcoming the forces. So if I'm having a very strong hydrogen bond between these two, so it's very hard. It will require more energy to overcome the intermolecular forces. Because that's the whole aim, guys. If we want to boil something or melt something, we simply need to overcome the intermolecular forces. In other words, we need to break them, but don't use the term break when you are answering. You are overcoming intermolecular forces. So basically, if you require more energy, guys, to overcome the intermolecular forces, it means that that will be a higher melting point, or that will be a higher boiling point, because you are using up more energy. I mean, like you're using more energy to heat this thing until it boils. So if we're having strong hydrogen bonding, it means that we are having a stronger intermolecular force, and this stronger intermolecular force will require us to use more energy. So here we're going to say more energy is required. More energy in form of heat is required to overcome the intermolecular forces, because they are so strong. And if we are requiring more energy, it means that we will take longer to boil. So it means that you're going to have higher boiling point. High boiling point. We are also going to have high melting point. Guys, remember, boiling point and melting point, they are directly proportional. They just go hand in hand, because all of them, they just require you to overcome the intermolecular forces. So if you take more energy to overcome the intermolecular forces, it means that that compound would have a higher boiling point. It will take time. It will take long for it to boil. Are you guys getting the sense what?
Yes.
Yes. And the vapor pressure is going to be lower. So there will be a lower vapor pressure, because remember guys that vapor pressure is inversely proportional to what? To atmospheric pressure, to boiling point and melting point. Okay. Yeah, so if we are having a higher boiling point because we require more energy to boil or more energy to melt, it means that you're going to have a lower vapor pressure. Because remember guys, I've already explained the relationship between these two to say that if we're having a greater boiling point, then we are going to have a smaller vapor pressure. If we're having a higher boiling point, like higher, if we increase the boiling point, if we take a compound that is having a higher boiling point, it's going to have a lower vapor pressure. If we take a compound that will have a higher melting point, it's going to have a lower vapor pressure. If you take a compound that will have higher boiling point, it will also have a higher melting point. That is why those organic compounds that have got strong intermolecular forces, they require more energy, because we need to overcome these intermolecular forces for us to be able to overcome, for us to be able to change to change this from solid to liquid. And you want to change this from solid to liquid. That's melting, guys, like literally melting. You're taking it from solid to liquid. So to be able to break down those bonds, to be able to break down those hydrogen bonds that are connecting the water molecules, you will need more energy. Okay, so higher boiling point, higher melting point. But if I take something with weaker intermolecular forces, for example, guys, if I take let's just say I take pentane. Pentane is an alkane, right, guys?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about pentane, guys. When we talk about pentane, what intermolecular forces does it have?
London forces.
Yes, weak London forces. Yes, the emphasis on weak, guys.
Yes.
If you just say London forces, it's trouble. So it's weak London forces. So the London forces, guys, remember already said that they are very weak intermolecular forces. So it means that the molecules of pentane have got weak London forces between them. So if we're having weaker forces, are we going to require that much energy, guys? Are we going to require too much energy to break down something that is already weak? Like imagine, guys, we have a strong bond and we have a weak bond. Which one requires more energy? Like if we're having just these weak London forces, is it going to be that much hard to overcome these intermolecular forces? No. So it means that we won't require that much energy. So basically here, less energy is required. Remember, the energy is in form of heat. The energy is in form of heat. So less heat or less energy is required to be able to do what? To be able to overcome the intermolecular forces, because basically, they are weaker very already. So if the intermolecular forces are weak, they will be just easy to break. Like imagine, guys, it's like you are fighting with someone that is weak, that is hungry. If you fight with someone that is full of energy and has got a lot of energy, that person will require you to use more energy to fight them. But if you take someone who's just hungry, sleepy, and weak, it's easy to fight them. So you won't require that much energy. Similarly here, if it happens that our molecules have got weak London forces, such as the molecules of pentane, because it's an alkane, they've got very weak London forces, then it means that we won't require that much energy. So there will be not much energy, less energy will be required for us to be able to overcome these intermolecular forces. So what does that mean about the boiling point and the melting point? Are they going to be higher or lower?
They're going to be lower, sir.
Yes, they're going to be lower, guys. So we're going to have lower boiling point. You're going to have lower boiling point. Also going to have lower melting point, because this is weak already. It's weak intermolecular forces. There is less energy required for us to end up overcoming them. So it will make it like won't take that long for it to boil. It won't take that much long for it to even melt because it's weak, easy to just devour. But what about the higher the vapor pressure? What is it gonna be?
The vapor pressure is gonna be high.
Yes.
High, so
Yeah, so the vapor pressure is going to be high. So there's going to be higher vapor pressure. So once you do this, guys, it means that you understand physical properties. Like basically that's all about physical properties. Understanding the relationship between intermolecular forces and the energy required to overcome the intermolecular forces, and also understanding the effect on the boiling point, the melting point, and the vapor pressure. Once you grasp these things, it will be very easy. Let's go to application. Answer the following questions. 1.5. Which one of the following functional groups has the strongest intermolecular forces? We have got these 4 in total. A is hydroxyl and formyl, B is formyl and carbonyl, C is hydroxyl and carboxyl, D is carboxyl and carbonyl. Which one of the following functional groups has the strongest intermolecular forces? Pick one. Quick. Anyone who says something?
C.
C. Okay, someone says C here. Who is it? Is it Bandisile? Bandisile says C. Why did you pick C, Bandisile?
Because a hydroxyl group, the functional group of the hydroxyl is alcohol, then of carboxyl is carbonic acid.
Exactly. Hydroxyl is a functional group for alcohols. Carboxyl group is a functional group for what? For carboxylic acids. And we know that alcohols and carboxylic acids, they are the ones that do what? They are the ones that are the strongest intermolecular forces, because the question says which one of the following functional group would have the strongest intermolecular force? Of course, it's going to be hydroxyl and carboxyl. We even wrote their structural formula when we began, and we were comparing them, which one is stronger than the other. This is a carboxyl group. It is the one coming from the carboxylic acid. So this is a carboxyl group. And then this is a hydroxyl group. So both of these, they can do hydrogen bonding. But it's just that one other one is more powerful than the other. The one of the carboxylic acid is more powerful. 1.9. Which one of the following compounds has the lowest vapor pressure? Yes, Sam?
C, sir.
C. Sam just went to C straight. Eh?
A, sir. A.
Man, I say one thing, Sam, and you never return back to it again. Say one thing. Is it A or is it C?
A, sir.
A. Why did you pick A? Give a reason for your answer.
In London Falls.
Oh, so weak London force, they give us low vapor. Okay, so weak London force, they give us low vapor pressure.
Oh, well, I'm not interested. Let me check something.
Guys, take your time. Think properly. I've already told you the relationship between vapor pressure, boiling point temperature, and the melting point temperature. Yes, Shadrach.
The compounds that has the lowest vapor pressure, it will be C, say.
Yes, it is C. Guys, vapor pressure acts opposite to boiling point and melting point. So when you first realize, guys, propane is an alkane. It is having weak intermolecular forces, weak London forces, right? So it's like weak. I'm just going to write weak intermolecular forces to keep a track of time. So weak intermolecular forces. Weak intermolecular forces, guys, we say that they require less energy. They require less energy. And less energy means that you're going to have lower boiling point and melting point. Didn't you say that, guys? Didn't you say that you're going to have lower boiling point and melting point? Didn't we?
Sir.
And then what about the vapor pressure, Yona?
We did, sir.
What about the vapor pressure?
Gonna be high.
It's going to be high, guys. Don't just rush to answer.
High, sir.
I think this is what you do, guys, in exams, and you guys are going to get in trouble. Don't rush to answer. Analyze based on what you know. Take your time. Because if you don't do that, you're going to assume that you passed the test or the exam or whatever. Then you just come out just to find out Uti, you got things wrong. You just move with the flow fast. It's better for you to raise your hand and do an analysis and tell me what I think Uti, we're gonna have weak intermolecular forces and we're gonna have this and we're gonna have this, like by order. Because if you're just gonna give me the final answer, it means that you just say I lower vapor pressure, so it means that I must have weak intermolecular forces. Guys, learn how to master your mind at this point. That's the most important thing. Mastering your mind, making your mind to move in the correct flow. Okay, so the correct flow says here you start with the strength of the intermolecular forces. If it's weak intermolecular forces, it's less energy. If it is strong intermolecular forces, it's more energy. If it is less energy, obviously the boiling point and melting point, it will be low. But the vapor pressure, it's opposite. Do you guys see that?
Sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Propanoic acid, it is having strong intermolecular forces. It is the strongest because it is strong hydrogen bond, and it is the strongest, even stronger than alcohols. So it means that this one will require more energy to overcome those intermolecular forces. Okay, and then more energy, it means that we're gonna have what? A higher boiling point temperature.
And melting.
We're going to have a higher melting point temperature as well. But the vapor pressure, it always acts opposite, must be lower. That's the lower vapor pressure that the question is asking us. So the question is asking us for a compound having the lowest vapor pressure. It must be the one that is strongest actually, because vapor pressure acts opposite. That's why I said it's inversely proportional. Yes,
So in other words, C ne B ngaba similarly correct.
no, C is the best. They say lowest. So lowest vapor pressure, it must be the strongest intermolecular force. If you compare B and C, which one has got a strong intermolecular force than the other?
C, sir.
C, right? So basically it means that it will require the most energy. It will have the highest boiling point and melting point. So the vapor pressure will be the lowest. It will be even lower than the one of alcohol.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So B is an alcohol. Yes, it is having strong hydrogen bond. Yes, but the hydrogen bonding in C is way stronger than the one in B. So basically, the hydrogen bonding in C being stronger, it will require the highest amount of energy, making a very high boiling point, very high melting point, but a lowest vapor pressure, because vapor pressure will do the complete opposite. How are guys hearing each other?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when we come back, guys, we're going to complete the topic by looking at how to compare intermolecular forces if we've got compounds with different homologous series or compounds with the same homologous series.
Hey Lapo, I know that you've been enjoying this wonderful video and most likely you've been enjoying watching this handsome face in front of you, but sorry ladies, I'm taken. I just here to tell you that Educate is on the road to 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. So please click the subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you get notifications whenever I post new videos. I want you guys to pass. Okay, so if you make my dream true, I reach 100k subscribers, I will make your dreams come true. I will even get you to varsity. I will get you with 7 distinctions. Yes.
We've been looking at generally how the intermolecular forces strength is related to physical properties such as boiling point and melting point. And I have told you guys how you explain it. You are supposed to tell us the type of intermolecular force that you're having. Is it strong or is it weak? If it is strong, then it means that we are going to require more energy. If it is weak, we are going to require less energy. And obviously, if we require more energy to overcome intermolecular forces, it means that we are going to end up having higher boiling point, higher melting points, but the vapor pressure must be lower. If we are going to use less energy to overcome intermolecular forces like or these weak intermolecular forces, it means that you're going to end up at lower boiling point, lower melting point, but a higher vapor pressure. All right, so now let us go to comparing the intermolecular forces strength and physical properties. So look at these two tables that I've given you. All right, if I tell you to compare or to give a reason why butan-2-ol has got this melting point, whereas 2-methyl-butane has got this melting point. All right, I want you guys to compare the melting point of butan-2-ol and 2-methyl-butane, because these are compounds that are found on different homologous series. Okay, so this 2-methyl-butane, you guys have already classified it earlier on. You said that this is definitely an alkane, and this butan-2-ol, you guys have classified it to be an alcohol. But look at their melting points. The melting point of butan-2-ol is negative 115 degrees Celsius, whereas the melting point of 2-methyl-butane, it is negative 159.77 degrees Celsius. Now, if I were to ask you to explain why butan-2-ol has got that boiling point compared to that of that melting point compared to that of 2-methyl-butane, what would you say? Okay, first of all, which one is higher here, guys? Which one is higher? Just tell me which, between butan-2-ol and 2-methyl-butane, which one is a high melting point according to the graph that you are given? Yes, Bandisile?
Butan-2-ol has a higher melting point.
Yes, butan-2-ol, guys. We are not doing theory here. You are looking at the table. You are looking at what provided. You are provided with melting points of each and every compound here, guys. You must have an active alert. Okay, you are having boiling melting points of each and every organic compound. We have got 2-methyl-butane, which is our compound A, having this melting point. Butan-2-ol is having this melting point. Propanoic acid is having this one, which is negative 21 degrees Celsius. And 2-fluorobutane, we don't know it is X. But now the thing is, if I tell you to compare butan-2-ol, which is compound B for this table, this first table, okay, if I tell you to compare butan-2-ol and 2-methyl-butane, you can observe that the melting point of butan-2-ol is negative 115 degrees Celsius, whereas the melting point of 2-methyl-butane, it is negative 159.77 degrees Celsius. And Bandisile says that the one of butan-2-ol is greater than the one of 2-methyl-butane. Do you guys all see that negative 115 degrees Celsius is greater than 159.77? Do you guys realize that just from the table?
Yes.
Yes, Bandisile, what's the question? Okay, her hand is still raised up, but it's fine. So now when it comes to explaining it, okay.
So I wanted to answer the question.
Okay. So let me just rewrite the question. Explain the difference in the melting point of compound B and compound A. 3 marks. Explain the difference, because we have already seen that the difference is that butan-2-ol, it is having a higher melting point than what? Than this 2-methyl-butane. Now explain the difference. Let's see, Bandisile.
So it's because butan-2-ol is a alcohol, and alcohol has strong hydrogen bond. The methyl 2-methyl butane is an example of an alkane, and it has weak London forces. So, strong hydrogen bond or strong intermolecular forces results in the compound or what having a higher boiling and melting point. Here we have
Okay, beautiful.
we have a higher melting point on butane to all. It is because of the stronger intermolecular forces.
There's just one thing. There's just that one thing that you missed. Let's just go to the the flow that you must use. Here you're already seeing. You just pick one as a reference. In this case, you want to explain why butane 2-ol it is stronger than 2-methyl butane. So you can see that butane 2-ol has got a higher melting point, right? That's what you saw from the table. It has a higher melting point. So you just go backwards. If it has a higher melting point, it means that more energy was actually required to overcome the intermolecular force. So it means that it has got what? It has got stronger intermolecular forces. So when you answer it, you must answer it starting from telling us the type of intermolecular forces that we have. So the first point you state, because these are two different homologous series, guys. Compound B is an alcohol, compound A is a what? Is an alkane. They are two different homologous series. You first need to state the type of intermolecular forces for each and every organic compound here. Since you are comparing B and A, you are going to mention that here B, you can say butane 2-ol. You can start telling us the intermolecular forces. Butane 2-ol, it has hydrogen bonding, or it has strong hydrogen bonding, remember? Okay, but you can just say it has got hydrogen bonding because they're still going to explain the strength. Butane 2-ol has strong hydrogen bonding, or it forms strong hydrogen bonding interaction. Strong hydrogen bonding. Those are the interactions. Whereas, okay, you can first start say that butane 2-ol is an alcohol, therefore it forms strong hydrogen bonding. But we have got what? 2-methyl butane. 2-methyl butane is an alkane. So it means it forms, or you can say that it has London forces. It has got London forces because those are the intermolecular forces. Actually, we did an activity comparing the intermolecular forces by using the same table. We did that before we began. So butane 2-ol has strong hydrogen bonding, but 2-methyl butane has weak London forces. It has got weak London forces. You guys are going to write it in the proper way. Weak London forces. That is one point. You have explained that butane 2-ol you have stated the type of intermolecular forces found on each of the compounds that you're comparing. Now, the next thing that you should talk about is the strength of the intermolecular forces. You need to state the strongest type of intermolecular force. State the strongest type of intermolecular force. So which one is stronger between this hydrogen bonding that we have in butane 2-ol and these London forces that we have in 2-methyl butane?
Is the butane 2-ol.
Yes, so basically the hydrogen bonding in butane 2-ol is a stronger intermolecular force. So this hydrogen bonding in butane 2-ol is a stronger intermolecular force. You can say than the London forces, forces in 2-methyl butane. So you state the type of intermolecular force that you're having. So the hydrogen bonding in butanol. So this hydrogen bonding that you're having butanol, because it's an alcohol, is a stronger an IMF than the London forces that we're having in what? In 2-methyl-butane. You need to state the strongest type of intermolecular forces because you are comparing them, guys. You can see the title here. This is comparing intermolecular forces and physical properties. So what does it mean if the hydrogen bond is a stronger intermolecular force than the London force? What does it mean? What else should we mention after that? Our sequence now. Remember, guys, we mentioned the type of intermolecular force, right? Then we now mention the strength of the intermolecular force. Now, if we are having a strong hydrogen bond in this butanol, what does that imply, Pandisel?
It means that there is more energy required
Exactly.
to overcome the
Exactly. That's what's the missing part in your initial answer. So here we require more energy. So more energy. Remember, guys, that this butanol is having stronger hydrogen bond. So because it's stronger, will require more energy. So here we can say that there is more energy required to overcome. You can say to overcome the hydrogen bonding in butanol than in what? Than the London forces in 2-methyl-butane, because basically we're going to require more energy to overcome the bonds of butanol, which is the strong hydrogen bond, than we will require energy to do what? To break the bonds in London forces. Because remember, guys, London forces, they are weak. So basically we won't require that much energy. More energy required to overcome the hydrogen bonds in. If you write fully like this, you always get 4 marks. More energy is required to overcome the hydrogen bonds in butanol. So basically we require more energy to overcome those hydrogen bonds in butanol than in what? Than in this 2-methyl-butane. So if we require more energy to overcome the hydrogen bonds, now what does that mean about our melting point? Because our table, remember, guys, it is giving us a melting point. So we need to be able to explain everything and still refer, because the question actually says explain the difference in the melting point of B and A. So you must somehow get back to the melting point. So I've already told you guys that since here the butanol is having stronger hydrogen bonding, that's a stronger intermolecular force compared to the London forces that are found in 2-methyl-butane, which is an alkane. So there will be more energy that we will require so that we can overcome these hydrogen bonds in the butanol than in the London forces. Or than in the 2-methyl-butane, I mean. So now what does that have to do with melting point? That's the question. What are you going to say is a concluding statement? Because they say explain the difference in the melting point of B and A. So everything must refer back to the melting point. We are at the energy now. What does energy have to do with the melting point now?
So I think on that one, we'll say on butanol, we'll have the high boiling point and high melting point.
Yes, so we're gonna have okay, we just need to mention only one, because here the table is specific. We are talking about the melting points, of course. So here more energy is required to overcome the hydrogen bonds in butanol. So if we are requiring more energy to overcome those hydrogen bonds in butanol, it means that there will be a higher boiling point, because I've already shown you guys that the moment we have more energy required to overcome the intermolecular forces that we have, it means that that particular compound has got a higher boiling point, has got a higher melting point, because it will take time for it to boil, it will take time for it to melt, because the forces are so strong that it takes a lot of energy and time to Yeah, it takes a lot of energy for us to be able to overcome those intermolecular forces. That is why this more energy, it implies a higher boiling point or a higher melting point. Yes, Shadrach.
So when they give us a table of comparison,
Yes.
So if they talk about the boiling point, we only compare the boiling point. If they talk about the melting point, we only compare the melting point. We
Yes.
forget about if we talk, like for instance, now we're talking about the melting point. We forgot about the vapor and the boiling point. We just focus on the melting point.
Okay, it depends on the context of the question. If we read the question again here, it says explain the difference in the melting point. So it was specifically saying that at the end of the day, you must refer back to the melting point. Sometimes they will do the boiling point, sometimes they will do the vapor pressure. But basically, though that information that I gave you prior to say that higher boiling point, high melting point, lower vapor pressure is for you to just always know that, so that when you are now given a scenario to apply this whole thing, you'll be able to apply based on what you are given. In this case, your table was giving you an organic compound and its corresponding melting point in degrees Celsius. So in this case, everything is in the context of the melting point. But that doesn't mean that the boiling point is not also high. Yes, it is also high, but it's not that much significant for the question, because the question was asking us to explain the difference in the melting point specifically. So here, when you are concluding, you are now allowed to conclude based on melting point, since the context of the question and the table provided is showing you the melting point. Are we clear?
Okay, I get it. Yes.
All right. So basically, higher melting point. So this is higher melting point. So butanol would have higher melting point than 2-methylbutane. So this explains why on the table you are having negative 115 degrees Celsius, which is higher than negative 159.77 degrees Celsius. So basically, butanol is having a higher melting point for the mere fact that it has got stronger hydrogen bond than the weaker Lannan forces found in the 2-methylbutane. Is the one that actually will require more energy. Guys, don't miss all these points of energy. If you don't talk about energy, you skip energy, that's going to be a problem. Are we together, guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Due to space constraints, I don't think it would. Okay, this one whereby you're comparing a carboxylic acid and an alcohol, we are still going to do it. But okay, if I compare, guys, a carboxylic acid, for example, methanoic acid and ethanol, do you see that in this second table, this table B, you're having compound A, which is methanoic acid, and its molecular mass is 46 grams per mole. And then ethanol is also having the same molecular mass, which is compound B. It is still 46 grams per mole. But now if you look carefully at their boiling points, now this table is giving you boiling points. It's way different now. Okay, so methanoic acid is having 100.8 degrees Celsius of boiling point, whereas ethanol is having 78.4 degrees Celsius of boiling point. How can you possibly explain the difference between methanoic and ethanol? Because both of them, they're having the same molecular mass. So they're having the same molecular weight, in other words. Okay, so it's like they've got the same heaviness. All of them, they are heavy in the same way. Okay, like they're heavy in the same way, guys. 46, that's molecular mass is the same. It means that if you take methanoic acid and ethanol, and you take 1 mole of those and you put it on a electronic balance or on a scale, okay, it's going to weigh 46 grams per mole, both of them. So they have the same mass, molecular mass, but now they don't boil at the same temperature. One boils at a higher temperature, another boils at a lower temperature. Specifically, methanoic acid is boiling at a high temperature of about 100.8 degrees Celsius, whereas ethanol is boiling at 78.4 degrees Celsius. So now explain the difference. Why would methanoic acid be boiling at a high temperature compared to ethanol? Yes, Mandisela?
Because methanoic acid has the strongest hydrogen bonding than ethanol, or should I say, but ethanol has strong hydrogen bonding.
Okay, so basically, remember guys, when you're comparing methanoic acid and ethanol, both of them, they've got strong hydrogen bonds. You mentioned that as your first point. Both methanoic acid and ethanol have got strong hydrogen bonds. That's the intermolecular force. But now, when it comes to point number 2, when it comes to stating the strongest intermolecular force, you are going to say that the hydrogen bonding in methanoic acid is stronger than the hydrogen bonding in ethanol. I don't have any space to write anymore, but you guys can write that. So the hydrogen bonding in methanoic acid, it will be way stronger than the hydrogen bonding in ethanol. Why would that be the case? If I was to say that the hydrogen bonding in methanoic acid is stronger than the one in ethanol, would that be correct, and why?
Because a carboxylic acid is bonded to 2 oxygen atoms.
Yes, a carboxylic acid has got 2 sides for hydrogen bonding, or you can say it is bonded to 2 oxygens, or it consists of 2 oxygens. And I already explained to you guys that a carboxylic acid, since it's having 2 oxygens, there are 2 sides for hydrogen bonding. There are 2 places where hydrogen bonding can occur. But ethanol, there is only one side for hydrogen bonding. So basically, the hydrogen bonding in methanoic acid, it will be a stronger intermolecular force compared to the hydrogen bonding in ethanol. And then eventually, if we're having a stronger intermolecular force in methanoic acid, it means we'll require more energy to be able to overcome the intermolecular forces in methanoic acid than the ones in ethanol. And it means that we will end up having a higher boiling point. At the end of the day, you must conclude based on the boiling point, because your table in this case, it was given in form of boiling points. So I'm just giving you a heads up, guys. I want you guys to be able to do these practicals. Okay, last one, guys. The last scenario, I promise we're about to sleep now. I'm sure you guys are tired. Okay, so what about if you're comparing the intermolecular force strength if you've got compounds with the same homologous series? So now they don't have different homologous series, it's the same. For example, guys, look at this table that has got 4 4 organic compounds here. The first organic compound is methane, the second one is ethane, the third one is propane, the fourth one is butane. So we are increasing the number of carbon atoms. So as we are moving from compound 1, which is methane, to compound 4, which is butane, do you guys see that our number of carbon atoms are increasing?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Now the thing is, these are all belonging to the same homologous series. It's no longer the same case as that one, because those ones, guys, remember, one of them could be an alcohol, another one could be a carboxylic acid, one of them could be an alkane, another one could be an alcohol. That's different homologous series. So that implies we've got different intermolecular forces. For these ones, these are organic compounds with the same homologous series, or that belong to the same homologous series. Look at this. This is methane, ethane, propane, butane. These 4 guys, to what homologous series do they belong?
Alkanes.
They are alkanes. So all of them, they are alkanes. So what intermolecular forces are they having between their molecules?
Weak London forces.
Weak London forces.
Yeah, so all of them have got weak London forces now. So how are you going to even say that one is greater than the other? Because all of them, they have the same intermolecular force since they are belonging to the same homologous series. That's when you need to use this way of answering questions, right? First, you state the type of compound with the longest chain or a bigger surface area. So basically, guys, if I take two compounds here and I say that this is propane. Okay, let's just see. Okay, this is propane. So propane has got 3 carbons in there in the mother chain, and then I'm going to compare it to ethane. Ethane is only 2 carbons in the mother chain. So we've got propane and ethane. Do you guys see the propane and the ethane here?
Yes.
Okay. So now you can see that the difference between these two, yes, they're all alkanes, all of them, they've got London forces between their molecules. But now, thing is, this first alkane has got more carbons in its parent chain. Like it has got a longer chain, or it has got a longer chain compared to the other ones. This is a chain of 3 carbons, but for ethane it's a chain of 2 carbons. So basically, the one that has got a longer chain, we say that it is a what? It has got a bigger surface area. We usually use the term bigger surface area. So because it is having more carbons in its longest chain, yes, both of them are having London forces between their molecules, but that one has got more carbons in its parent chain. It has got a bigger surface area, in other words. But when you look at that one, it has got only 2 of them, so that's a smaller surface area. So when you want to compare these two, which is propane and ethane, you can first state that both propane and ethane, let's just say you want to compare their melting points. But this graph has got both the things, so you can talk about both the characteristics. The melting point of methane is 183. The melting point of ethane is negative 172. The melting point of propane is negative 186. And then the one for butane is negative 136. Right, it's negative 136. And then, so I think there must be negative 183 here. Yeah, something like this. So if you compare both methane or both ethane and propane, right, the ones that we wrote their structural formulas, both propane and ethane, they've got what? They've got London forces between them. So both propane, if we want to compare ethane and propane alone, these ones that I've written their structural formulas here, both propane and ethane, you can say that they have what? They have London forces, the weak London forces. They've got London dispersion forces, or you can say they've got weak London forces. Right, but when you look at their chain, propane has got a bigger surface area. We're gonna say that propane has got a bigger surface area, because propane is having like kind of propane actually is having a longer chain of carbons, right? Can you guys kind of see that?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So propane is having a larger chain of carbons because it's having 3 carbons in its parent chain. So basically propane has a longer chain. But now when you want to write it, you can either say that propane has got a longer chain than ethane, or you can say that propane it has got a bigger surface area. Okay, are we together, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so knowing that both propane and ethane have got London dispersion forces, you're going to say but propane has got a bigger surface area, but propane has a larger surface area. Okay, so propane has a larger surface area, than ethane. So propane has a larger surface area than ethane. Okay, so now when it comes to the strength, which one do you think is going to be strong? Now that's the question. Which one do you think is going to be strong? Which one is going to
The
be
one that has
strong?
a bigger surface area.
Yes, the one that has got a bigger surface area, it will appear to be more strong. Okay, so bigger surface area. So we can just say here propane. So propane's London forces, or the intermolecular forces found in propane, are stronger. So propane's intermolecular forces, or the intermolecular forces found in propane, are stronger than the what? Stronger than the London forces, or you can say stronger than the intermolecular forces found in ethane. Okay, so basically the intermolecular forces of propane are stronger than the one found in ethane. Or you can say that the London forces, I'm sure you already said both of them have got London forces, but propane has a larger surface area than ethane. So the intermolecular forces, or you can say the London forces found in propane, are stronger than the London forces found in ethane, because we've already given the reason that propane has a larger surface area than ethane. And if that's the case, it means that propane's intermolecular forces, or propane's London forces, are stronger than the one in ethane, because the bigger the surface area, or the bigger the number of carbons in the parent chain, the stronger the intermolecular forces become. So even though they've got both London forces, but the one having more carbons in the parent chain will be more strong. It would have more stronger London forces compared to the one that has got a smaller number of carbons in the parent chain. And basically, it means that we're going to require more energy. You now talk about the energy. So basically, we're going to require more energy to overcome the London forces in propane, to overcome the London forces. I'll just say LF. More energy will be required to overcome the London forces in propane than in ethane, because propane is having slightly stronger London forces because it has got a bigger surface area, a larger surface area, a bigger number of carbons in the parent chain compared to that of ethane. So there will be more energy required. So more energy required to be able to overcome those London forces in propane than the ones found in ethane. And if there is more energy, you already know that more energy they would be associated with usually is higher boiling point and high melting point. Although for this table there's a bit of a deviation. There's a bit of a deviation, but basically we expect to have higher boiling point and higher melting points in propane than in ethane, due to this a high amount of energy that is required to overcome the intermolecular forces. Do you guys kind of get the sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so when you are comparing compounds of the same homologous series, try to just talk about the surface area, talk about the chain. Which one has got a bigger chain? So the bigger chain means the bigger surface area. It's fine, guys. Go and do these activities. 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. You guys are going to practice this forever and forever. Just go and practice all of this. I would like us to please close our eyes and say a word of prayer. Sithi Baba wethu semazulwini, maliphathe ngomncwele igama lakho, umbuso wakho mawufike, intando yakho mayenziwe emhlabeni njengoba yenziwa ngasemazulwini. siphe isinkwa sethu semihla nemihle, sithethelele kuzo zonke izono namacala, njengoba nathi sibathethelela abasonayo. Ungasoleli ekulingweni, kepha usindise yonke inkohlakalo esezweni. Ngokubumbusho ngowakho, amandla nobukhosi, uduma negqamuko ngowakho, kuze kube phakade naphakade. Amen.